All right, everyone, how you doing today? Just playing around here with my little setup, part of it anyway, and this is sequencing, different kind of sequencing than what we're used to. But let me explain to you a little bit about what I did there. And we're not going to be using any of this in class, but I do want to expose you to some of these other techniques about sequencing that I find fascinating, that I can take these things here and just sort of set up a few parameters and let the machines jam. And just by twisting knobs, I can create an entire soundscape. And this is not very complicated patching. I mean, I don't have, these are two, modules, and this is also a semi-modular synthesizer. And the way I have this working is this is the master, this Moog right here. It's called the matriarch. And I have, let me turn the delay off so that we can just hear the pure sound. So I have an arpeggiator set up. And when I push this blue button, that means that if I play a note, it will hold it indefinitely. And if I push play, then the amount of notes that I push will just play in perpetuity. The sound gets latched. And I've got it set up for a random unfolding of the notes. Now, this instrument has 4 oscillators, which means that it can produce 4 notes at a time in paraphony, not in polyphony. It's because they all share the same filter and envelope. But you can play 4-note chords. But when you have the arpeggiator going, and I've got it set up here in 4 voice mode, it will cycle through the 4 oscillators. So if I only have oscillator 1 turned on, which is this guy here, and I play this, and I turn the volume up. So I've got 4 oscillators, and I played a 3-note chord. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So as it cycles through, it loses, it moves back 1 oscillator. So even though I only have 1 oscillator playing, you're hearing it cycling through the arpeggio. And then if I turn up the delay, you can hear that the echoes are repeating, creating an additional rhythm. Now, if I turn up oscillator 3, right? So it's only playing the first and third cycle through the 3 notes. And it's skipping the second and the fourth. And then now I can bring in the second oscillator. And then all 4 oscillators. And then I can change the octaves so that each oscillator is in a different octave. Right? So you get variation there. And then I could change the timbre. So these are all now set for a triangle wave. If I turn the filter, I'll open the filter up. And let me turn down the delay. It's a very smooth sound. I have now one with sawtooth. And remember, we went over sawtooth. It has a lot of harmonics in it. Now I've got sawtooth, square wave, triangle, and a different square wave, right? And you'll notice that the 2 sawtooths are very loud. So what I would do is I would bring the volume of those oscillators down to blend them in. But let's just go back to making them all pulse width. Okay, so I'm going to turn the oscillators volume off here. And this is playing up here. Now, this is an interesting module. It has 2 oscillators, and it has 2 sub-oscillators for each oscillator. And you tune each oscillator to a pitch, right? And then you program in a 4-step sequence over here. And there's little knobs here where you can do the step that you want. So I've got dee da dee da beep ba dee ba beep da dee ba, right? Just a simple pattern. Now, when you bring in the sub oscillators, their bass, the very first pitch is an interval from the frequency of the original oscillator, but then all the other notes are harmonics. And then you can bring in the second sub oscillator. So now I've got, right, a 4-note pattern with 3 different pitches playing. So let me turn the volume of that down. And then I have the same thing here on oscillator 2, and that has a different 4-note sequencer. And I've got a different pattern here. Boom, 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 boom. And then this also has its sub oscillators. And then if I get all of these going, right, it's like instant Steve Reich. Now, let me just turn off the sub oscillators and turn down the second oscillator. So now we're just hearing this original oscillator, and it's playing this sequence, right, in steady notes. There are 4 additional polyrhythmic functions here. So if I push this, right, you're hearing that it's going out of time every few beats. Because I've got, these have tempo knobs here. So you can take each one of these these additional sequence functions and have them be at different tempi. Right? So and then if I bring oscillator 2 back in, and the sub oscillators, you can hear how it's such a complex pattern. And then we can bring this guy back in. Bring our filter down to blend the sound in. Okay, so that's this and this. And what I'm doing to synchronize these is I'm taking this little cable right here that I've got tucked in. This is taking the clock from this module here in the synthesizer, and it's sending the clock into this synthesizer so that it's synchronizing whatever tempo I have this set to. This gets synchronized to this. Then I take the clock output from this one and send it to this one. And let's turn these guys down, and I'll just turn the master volume down here. And this is just a mono synth. And I've got this set to playing a 7-note sequence, or 7-step sequence, right? So I'm creating these polyrhythms with all the different timings going on. And you have to sort of make sure that the sequences all work together. And this again is synchronized. And you can see how complex those rhythms get, especially once you add the echo that's synchronized as well. And you get this very hypnotic pattern. And this is just the basic, this is very basic. It's not very complex. The music sounds complex, but what I've done here is not that complex. So I've just got the first oscillator and the first oscillator of this. And then what I can do is I can go over here and I can start playing around with the mix and the feedback and the timing of the delay. So if I turn the mix up, the feedback means there's more echoes being heard. And it starts to self-oscillate, and then if I play with the time, the pitch will change. And then if I stop this, and turn the mix down. So this is, ABC stuff of this type of setup, because you can just have all these patch points, all these things, and you could route all sorts of functionality to be controlled and create really much different timbres. And then I could also process these sounds with different reverbs and other delays and create more polyrhythms and different textures. And there's a lot that can be done. And then you could have different patterns, right? I could, for example, for this, right, I could start this off, I could play a 5-note pattern with 4 oscillators. And it's randomly choosing the octave, which note to play. I could switch the octave so that it's playing 2 octaves. I can change it so that it just goes in one direction. I could change chords. So now I've got a 7-note pattern playing, right? Let me get all these in the same octave. It's a little loud, so we'll bring the volume down. And then if I change chords on here, nothing will happen to these because I'm not transmitting note information, just timing. I could bring some noise in. Turn up the resonance. And stop it. It's a lot of fun. I don't know if there's a market for this kind of music, but I enjoy making it. Okay. Let me turn off that microphone. So how's everybody doing today?
Good.
That microphone's still on. Let me turn that down.
Doing all right.
Good. Okay. Any questions on that noise? No.
How would you recommend someone get started?
Yeah. So what I would say is the cheapest, because this can be expensive. You know what I mean? I didn't sit down and buy all these things all at once. Let me just shut my door back there. Give me 1 second. I was so excited to play, I didn't quite get set up. Notice my Ukrainian colors here. Okay. So I didn't just buy all these things in one shot. I acquire things over time, you know, and I research stuff. What I would say is learn with software. Let me get my iPad and I can show you some stuff. Right, and you could do this on your phone, but you could buy software that you can get freeware on that you could use inside of Pro Tools or standalone. Okay, so this is called the Moog Modular 15, right? So it's, there we go. Let's see, let me turn the volume up. So this is like a fairly inexpensive app. I don't know how much it is, but you can learn. Let me hide the keyboard. Yeah, I don't usually use this on my small. So it's got all this functionality here. It's got the sequencer. It's got all these patch points that you could play around with. There's also, you know, there's a mini Moog that Arturia makes. And you can learn about how signal flows and how to create sounds with this. There's times where this is on sale for $5, you know. There's also, this is one that I really like that sometimes is on sale. It's called the Animoog. And what's cool about this is you can, you know, you could have both hands on it, touching it. You can control this from a regular keyboard if you've hooked it up with this. But there's also some freeware. So like we could just do a Google search. There's a company called TAL. Let's see, where's my mouse? There it is. Here you go, right? So you could just do a search on these things. Right, so this is a FM synthesis, so I wouldn't start off there. That's a little difficult. But this is, you know, this is pretty cool. I don't really know that much about the Surge. This is a good way to start. It's very simple and laid out really well. You can, you know, learn about how to change sounds on your oscillators and then use an LFO to modulate it. It's got a filter and an envelope. So there's a bunch of free ones. So I would, you know, before I invest money, I would just get some software that's free and start playing around with it and see if you like it. Look on YouTube for demos that you could get somebody to give you tutorials so you can understand it. You know, a lot about synthesis is learning the foundations, right? So you have different sections of a synthesizer. You have the sound generating modules, which are the oscillators. You have filters, which shape the timbre. You have an envelope, which shapes how the sound unfolds over time. And you have an amplifier, which, you know, gives you an output level. So once you learn the basics and then you learn how to, you know, how they're routed, because there's many kinds of synthesis, right? But as far as the basic subtractive synthesis, you either have modular synthesis, which has all those cables plugged into it like I've got there, or you've got stuff where all that is wired in, which my mini Moog is set up like that, right? And then you've got synths that are sort of hybrid, like that gray machine back there. That's an ARP 2600. That doesn't really need any cables to play. It's semi-modular, but you can plug cables in and route things all over the place. And each one of these things makes a different sound. And so I use them all for different things. I do use them in work sometimes, but it's mostly for my own personal enjoyment. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So
I agree.
yeah. So I just wanted to take a minute before we got into the lesson today and just talk to you about your experience taking this class online this semester. You know, this is the fourth, I guess exactly 2 years ago, last month, we started teaching these classes all online. So I've had 4 semesters to get these things up in terms of how they're presented, you know, where I've got what I think is a good setup here for having switching multiple cameras and then making a high quality review video that actually sounds good that I can post online. But you know, I'm finding next semester I'm going to have to, if I'm still teaching next semester, I'm going to have to teach some of my classes in person again. And you know, there's things about teaching in person at the college the way it exists now that are really good. You have the one-on-one interaction when we go into the studio to record live instruments in Audio MIDI 2 and the end of Recording Studio Fundamentals. You can have a lot of camaraderie, but it's also a really tight space with not a lot of room in the control rooms, and they've all been sort of cannibalized to get students' equipment to be able to sign out to do the classes and stuff. So I don't know if they'll have them back together in a shape that was as good as when we left. So the actual way that we're going to be recording live instruments, if it's in person next semester, might actually not be as good as it was 10 years ago when I started teaching. So, you know, I've taken a lot of time and effort to sort of try and make these online presentations be pretty much the best that I can do. And I'm just wondering, have you found it easy to follow along? You know, I know that you guys are watching on little laptops and stuff mostly, so that makes it really difficult. But I did this semester, or was it last semester, where I did start learning how to zoom in with the mouse to make things bigger on your screen to make it easier for you. So anybody have any comments?
I think the review videos have been really, really crucial for me. Because when going back and doing the assignments, they answer all of my questions, you know, and some details that I either didn't think were, that I just didn't catch them, you know, watching the first time through. And then so being able to go back and really catching those details has been the most important part for me and the most helpful in being successful in the assignments.
Do you find that, now I'm not watching this on Zoom, you know, I'm seeing it on my screen over here. So if I look to the side, that's where I have a screen there with you guys in it and my camera is over here. So what I'm looking at, thank you, Joe, looks really good here, but I'm thinking that the Zoom is not as high quality a video as I post, and certainly the audio is not as good as what I post on YouTube. Is that accurate assessment or is that inaccurate?
I think that the review videos are certainly very high quality, and I don't have any issues with the quality during the Zoom either. I suppose that depends on one's internet speed, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right. Well, I just, you know, I have to make some decisions coming up in the next few weeks about next semester, and I definitely need feedback. Definitely helps me. It's not that much extra work for me to upload and make the review videos. It's like another hour's worth of work. I have a separate machine over here that I have 2. I'm recording the class twice in case one of them messes up. I have a backup, or 3 times, because there's also the Zoom that gets recorded in the cloud. But I'm recording it on this software called OBS over here. And I've got this hardware recorder called a Ninja V, which I purchased a few years ago to make 4K videos with. And I'm recording an output from this video switcher here into this guy over here. And that gets really high quality video and audio as well, coming right out of my audio interface. So I just have to get it off the disk there into the computer. And because that comes out to about 80 gigabytes worth of data per class, I have to put that into a video editing software and then render it something about 1 or 2 gigabytes to upload. Otherwise, 70 gigabytes would take me 2 days to upload that at my internet speeds here. So it's been fun for me to learn how to do all this stuff too. It's been very helpful. So, all right. So we had some issues with drum programming, so I gave people a week off on the assignment that were okay with the drum programming, and just I wanted people to catch up. Now, how many of you have already started on the audio editing assignment?
I have you.
You have or haven't? I see Joe has started.
I have started, yes.
Okay. So we're gonna go over something today that I think might be a little bit more beneficial. I put together a session, and we're going to spend the rest of the class working on this. That I think will be more helpful than what that assignment was. So if you want to hand in what you've done so far today, I'll look at it and give you extra credit for that for the semester. But what I'd like to do is assign what I prepared. I prepared something better because I was a little frustrated last week with some stuff. And so I put together a session here that I think would be a little bit, like I said, a little more beneficial to everybody. All right, so this is a really bad sounding track, and we're going to fix it. All right, so I played something in, and then some of the stuff I edited to make it sound bad, and some of the stuff I played in badly, and we'll fix it. So let's just take a listen. It's not that long. So you can hear the time doesn't work really well. Everybody's fighting each other. Yeah, bad notes, out of tune, out of time. It's painful. Everybody got drunk at the gig. All right, so we're going to fix this, right? So we've got stuff wrong with the brass. We've got stuff wrong with the bass. We've got stuff wrong with the guitar. What we're going to do is we're going to use the drums as the basis for fixing all the timing, because the drums are pretty good. All right. So we've got this part here at the beginning, which has a feel to it. Right? And then we've got this part here. Has just a little bit different feel. So what I want, I'm going to do is we're going to capture both of those feels, and we're going to set up a quantizing grid based upon the feel of this drum track. And then we're going to fix the timing where it's appropriate. So let me show you how that gets done. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so that's the pattern. So I'm going to pick 2 bars. Okay. And then we're going to go to our beat detective here, which if you've got an extended keyboard, it's Command Command and the number 8 over here. But if not, you'll just have to go to the event beat detective. Now, you remember last time we were dealing with the audio. Right here, we want to make a groove template extraction. So make sure we're not doing MIDI this time. It's not a MIDI performance. It's an audio performance. So we've got groove template extraction. Now, this is all messed up over here. We're basically measures 1 and 2. So what we want to do first is capture our selection. And you notice it goes from 1 to the end of 3. And it's 16th notes, but there's no triplets in there. So let's turn the triplets off. There we go. Good. Now we should be able to see everything nice and big. Okay, so let's get this down here. Detection, normal. Enhanced resolution. And we're going to analyze it. So we'll click on Analyze. And now that's grayed out because it's been analyzed. And again, like last week, we're going to take the sensitivity and we're only going to make it, we're going to only turn the sensitivity enough up so that just the transients, so that's here, 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 maybe here, 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 but not, but just the transients show up. So you'll see these purple lines coming down. Okay, so I wanted to get this right here, but it also added this here. And so I have to go get my hand tool. Let's zoom back in. And so if I hold down the Option key, right, hold the Option key, you see that little rectangle comes under the hand. And if you click on that, it goes away. Now, the other thing you can do is sometimes you might want to fine tune this. So you can grab this. Hold on. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me go to slip mode here. And let's do that zoom in again. So you can grab this and move it around. See that? So if it's off, like right here, this one here looks like it might be a little bit off. Right? See how it's a little bit early? So I could just drag that like that and tighten that timing up. That's your call. The other way was fine. Okay, so that looks pretty good, right? And then you want to extract this. It's 2 bars, time signature is 4/4. And we want to save this to disk. Now this is going to this should open up, right? The Grooves folder inside your Pro Tools folder inside of Documents, right? And so what I have is I've created a new folder called Pete Grooves. So you just click here, new folder, and you could put your name with whatever you want. And inside of, I'm going to open this up, and you see that I've got a bunch of grooves that I've created for other projects. And I'm going to call this, this project is called Fix Me. Fix Me Drums. Let's do that. Fix Me Drums. You can, okay, so, actually Fix Me Drums 1, because we're going to make a second one. Good. And then now we're going to go to the second area. Whoops. Go back to my grid mode. Okay, so they're all, that's a 1-bar phrase. So I'm going to just highlight that 1 bar. Okay, and then this is still up. I'm going to capture the selection, and notice it changes to 9 and 10. Right, so it's 1 bar long, and then I'm going to analyze that. And I didn't change the sensitivity. I left it at 25%, and it looks pretty good. Let me play that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm going to leave that like that, and I'm going to extract that, save to disk, and then fix me drums. If I click on this right here, it's going to change the name. I won't have to type it again. See that? And then I just have to fix that to 2. Fix me drums 2. Okay, great. So we're going to fix the bass first. So let's solo the bass and the drums, and let's listen to it from the beginning. So we can see right here, the bass starts late, correct? The drum starts right here, and the bass starts late. So that's the first thing. And we can make our resolution to 16th notes. Right, there's a little rushed note here. Wrong pitch there. Wrong pitch there. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to go right over into this area here. And we're going to get our elastic audio together. So we're going to change the time base from samples to ticks. And notice it looks like a little metronome now. Samples looks like a little clock. You see that? Looks like a little clock. And ticks looks like a little metronome. And then even though this is a monophonic line, I find that the monophonic doesn't work. It's not a great algorithm. So I'm going to use polyphonic. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remember when we were on Beat Detective, there were all those lines at the transients, right? We're going to have to clean up this bass part and make sure that there's not too many lines, but you have to do that manually. So it's a little bit of a pain in the neck. But so if you go here to the track view, you're going to select Analysis. And then you'll see that it's the same thing. As the Beat Detective. So let's play this. And you can see right at the beginning, why are there 2 markers there, right? It's one note. So let me go back to my grabber tool. Let me zoom in. And again, right? Hold the Option key down and click on that and it disappears. Same here. That's like a little finger click, but I don't think I want that. I want to make it as few as only what I need. Another one here. Just get rid of that. Okay, so right in this area here, there's a lot of stuff. All right, we don't need this. Da, beep, ba, 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 right? So we don't need this one here. And we don't need this last one here either. So again, we don't need this here. So we're just getting rid of these. So right, we don't want to confuse the computer or the software with too much information. And I'm just going to get rid of this one also. And I'm getting rid of that because this is where the transient is right here. And I'm getting rid of this here. I've just done this often enough where I know where everything is. Okay, so here, this is interesting because right here it's not on the transient. So we could just drag that over so that it's right more on where the beginning of the note is. And the same here. So you could see where the notes play, each one of those markers. Yeah, that's good enough. Right, and I just go. I'm going to just go through this quickly. So, you know, basically all these extra markers in here will mess up the computation when you're trying, if you're going to change and fix up the rhythm. Almost done. You see how much cleaner that looks, right? So you could see all of those extra bars right there. That's just too much information, and it's just going to really mess up any of the computations in order to move the audio. Right, because these markers are basically anchoring those transients to that whatever that tick is right there. And weird stuff happens if you've got too much of these in here. You know, it's better to just hire better players. But this is stuff that you really need to learn how to do. Whoops. Okay. That's too big. Okay, so I've done that. Oh, wait, this looks a little bit busy over here. Let's make sure that we're not too much. Okay, great. So let's go back to waveform. Now, you could select everything, option 0, and fix me 1. And you could do this, right? Let's take a listen to this. So it's not perfect, right? But what I'm going to do is separate out at measure 1 and try it again. Whoops. All right, so that's better. But what I want to do is I'm going to go through this section by section, and some of the stuff I'm going to move manually. So I've selected my slip mode, and I'm going to leave this out so I can access it. And I've clicked on this, which is tab to transients. And I've separated this out at measure 1, but I want to get right here, right on the beginning of this. And if I use the letter B, it separates it out. And then over here, I'll do the same thing, letter B. And then I'm just going to drag this so that it lines up with the beginning. See that? That's perfect. And then right here, so what I can do is I can separate out this clip, this a little bit like this, right? So just, this is a separate clip. And I can try to quantize that, and maybe I'll make it 90% instead of 100% accurate. Let's see what happens. It doesn't quite do it correctly, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to manually move this note here and this note here so that they line up with my drums. Now, you see how there's a space here? If you like that staccato, you can leave that. Not a problem with that. But what you can also do is you can fix that. So if you go up to your trim tool and you click on it, you'll see the second selection from the top is something called TCE. That's time compression and expansion. You select that, and then your trim tool looks like it's got a little clock on it. I can click and notice how I'm stretching that out so that now becomes like a legato note. That one's fine. Okay, so this here, I'm going to separate this out right here and right here, right? That's with Command E or the letter B. And then I'm going to move this here. And then I'm going to drag that out like that. And then let's do this. This looks pretty good here. Let's quantize just this area here. Right? You see how that does that rhythm doesn't sound good. So I'm going to separate out this note. And I'm going to move this back like that. And then stretch this out like this. That's better. It's not great. It's not perfect, but let me just see if I. And then what I want to do now is do a little crossfade. So I'm just going to select this area here and use the letter F. And it does a little tiny crossfade. Okay, so again, we've got this problem here. So I'm just going to separate that out, letter B. And I'm going to drag this over. And I'm going to tighten that up. And then right here, this note here, I'm going to separate this out. I'm going to get it in time better. And then, I'm sorry, I need to just separate this out completely like this. So it's a little separate thing. Slide this over like this. And this is, that's a half step too high, right? So I've got a piano in this session, so you can, I mean, it needs to be a C and it's a D flat. So you can just do Option T and transpose that down one semitone. Now, if that's really weird and you don't like that, there's another solution, right? Because that doesn't sound great. It still sounds a little funny. Right there. We got that. That sounds pretty good. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste it over that. And there you go. See, I fixed that. So there's no problem with that. Now, you know, this is an exercise to learn how to use these techniques. You would hopefully get a performance that's not this bad, that like if you were working with it. But this is a good exercise to learn how to do all this stuff. So let me continue on. So, you know, right here, I just pasted that same note right there. It worked fine. No problem. The rest of that is pretty good. And now notice this whole bit right here. I could separate this out, right? And you see how the whole thing is a little late. So I can just drag it and line it up a little bit better. Okay, so this is the second half. So let's separate this out right at the grid here. And let's see what happens if I try to quantize this with Fix Me Drums 2. Okay, so we have to fix this, but that was pretty good up to that point. So why was this one more successful than the other one? This one was more successful than the other one because I made the other one be a 2-measure groove, right? That doesn't really work as well. You should get 1 measure. So if you've got 2 different drum beat grooves, if you've got a 2-measure drum groove, right, you'll want to do a beat detective for the first measure and then another one for the second measure and title them. So I would have titled it 1, 2, and then the one I'm using here, I would have titled 3. All right, so this works best with just 1 measure. So let's play that again. Let's fix that. Copy, and then that could just go right here. And delete this. That's still a little late, right? So let's just slide that in till it sounds good. Or maybe we can quantize that. Yeah, so I just picked this one note and I applied the quantizing and it moved it into the right spot. That was a weird thing there. B. That's a really weird note right there. It doesn't really work. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to look for an F. What if I copied this lower F and popped it right there? Let's see. That's better than before. Now, one thing to notice is that whenever you've done a function to these tracks, they get a little right here. You see this little square in the upper right hand corner. So it's got sort of like a, I don't know, it looks like a bell, like a hand bell, right, with the cone at the bottom and then the arm going up. That's how you know that it's been affected. So that sounds pretty good. So now let's add our electric piano and listen and see if we have to do anything with that. Oh, before we do that, I'm going to fix this and make my 1 bar bit, right? So I'll get my beat detective. I'll capture this, analyze. great. And I'm going to extract this, save to disk, and this will be fix me. I'll call this fix me 1A, so I know it's just one measure long. All right, great. Well, the keyboard player sounds good. All right, so up to that point, I don't hear anything that needs to be done. Okay, so let's listen to that. Let me select that area there and let me separate that out, letter B, right? And then let's listen to that. So you could see that some notes are a little later than other notes and some notes are right on. That doesn't bother me, but let's just play around. I don't think I would quantize this, but let's do this fix me drums 2 because that's the second bit. And let's see what happens. Oh, we have to make this ticks and polyphonic again. And then let's just see what happens if we quantize this. Does it sound any better? No, it sounds worse. So we're going to just leave it the way it is. And let's just hear if there's anything really egregious. Now, here's where you can, you have to make an artistic choice. So this note here is shorter than the same note here, right? It doesn't bother me. But if it bothered you, you could just copy this and pop it right there. And, So, those are things that you would have to develop your own taste for how much you're going to actually fix these things. You just leaving some imperfections and some differences between measures makes things sound more human. And not everything is, beat detective to death. So, okay. All right, so my electric piano is fine. Now, I've got 3 guitar tracks. And they're all blue. So let's take a listen to them. I'm just going to solo them all. I made a mistake there, right? Timing's a little weird there with this track. All right. So one thing I want you to be aware of with guitar is that guitar can be very noisy. A single coil guitar can have 60 cycle hum unless you're using a position on it that uses both pickups and one of them is reverse wound from the other one. So typically what I might do if it was really noisy is I might clean it up. Right? See this schmutz? This doesn't bother me. It's not really that loud, but I might. But if this was like an overdriven guitar. So let me just do this. Let's just see something here. Harmonic. I never use guitar amp modeling because I just use regular amps, but let's just see what we can do here. So with that dirty sound, you can hear in between all this stuff, you can start hearing that. So with a dirty sound, you would definitely want to clean it up or put a noise gate on it, but I like to manually clean it up. So, you know, I would just go through and just get rid of all these little spots in between. Something like that through the whole track. And then, you know, I would probably maybe just select them all and then hit the letter F, and they'll do tiny little crossfades. Right, but with this track, you don't really need that. Now, right there, you've got that bad note. I don't know how to use Melodyne really well because I never use it. I would probably do that over again, but I might just leave that now. I'm not trying to fix that. But let's get our ticks and polyphonic. And let's just do... Let's just do this much, right? Let's just do those two measures. So I've got measure 1 to measure 3, and I want to play that with the drums and take a listen. Right? It's not really in the pocket. It's close, but no cigar. So here I think our quantizing will really help us. No, it won't. Let's do this first. Let's try this. All right, let's make that all one bit again. And let's just try one measure at a time. All right, so let's just... So that's one measure. I'm going to separate that out. And fix me drums 2, right? And I'm going to... this is fix me drums 1, A. So let's select that properly. Apply. That's better. And we do the next measure. Now, you could even get specific where these two notes here are rushing badly, these two notes. I could just separate those notes out and quantize just those notes. Also, what you could do is you could separate this out right here, and the whole thing is a little ahead. So I could just take this and just gently slide everything back a little bit. So you see there's multiple ways to fix this, right? So let's try this from here. Let's go right to there, separate that out with the letter B or Command E, and apply that. It's not going to fix that bad note. Now there's some artifact there. That's kind of weird, right? So let's just try dragging this again. So this is like, you know, experimentation, right? And you just, it's time. So this here is not in a good spot, right? That's really not played well. I don't want that transit. I'll apply this. Good. Make sure we get everything here. right there. So you just, rather than doing it globally, you have to just go through inch by inch. And the other thing too is that I didn't go here to the analysis and clean this up. So you see that I get some problems because of that, right? So let's now go to this next bit and start cleaning up some of this, some of the analysis here. So this is some of the things that will give you problems is if you don't clean that up. And look, there's 3 there, right? That's really bad. Okay, so let's now try that we've cleaned that up. This whole bit here. See what I mean? How much easier that was once I cleaned up all of those, all the markers. So I'm just going to do it now. I can just and hit the delete key too with these. This one's pretty easy, right? So I'm not deleting the track because I'm on the analysis page. I don't need this. So just get rid of the ones that you don't need. Great. And then waveform, and let's just... Okay, so there's 2 lines there. So this actually... I think that one sounds pretty good. I'm not going to do anything with this one. Let's take a look at this one here. And we'll get the analysis of this. Well, we got to make this ticks, polyphonic, and then analysis. All right, so there's a lot of busy work here, right? So I'm just going to get rid of that, get rid of that. So, I can do this fairly quickly because I know what I'm looking for. Yeah, all these things will mess up what you're doing. So let's do this, and this is Fix Me Drums 2. So this is the second half. And apply that. Oh, whoops. Let me undo that, and let me just separate this out here. And actually, I'm going to leave that the way it is. Sounds better this way. All right, here, though, I'm rushing. So that's not good. So I'll separate that out and fix that. This one here, I'm rushing. So I'll separate that out and fix that. No, I actually moved it there. So I'm going to slide it back a little bit. So all of these are rushing from here. Oops, sorry. To here. So let's see if that'll work. Yeah, that works. Okay, so the guitar sounds better. So let's listen to everything together. Guitar 1, I don't think I'm going to touch. That's just chords. So you can see automatically, it just sounds so much better now than it did originally. So those of you that are music ed students, you can, when you record your ensembles, you can go fix them and then listen to how your son sounds or your daughter sounds. They're fantastic. I'm doing such a great job teaching. No, seriously though, it's much, much better to get a good take. But for fixing up things here and there, this kind of work goes on all the time. Unfortunately, a lot of music that we're hearing today from live players is all gridded, you know, and it takes a lot of the life out of it. If we listen to some of the John Bonham loops, you know, he had great time, but he was playing around with where the beats lied, you know, on the bar, in the bar. And that's what gave it a groove, you know, that when I played you that 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 song by Wilson Pickett, Al Jackson delaying the snare drum a little bit just to make a different sound, different, you know, the feel. And when things are metronomically perfect all the time, it takes away that life. And the sad part, though, is that I think a lot of younger people, that's what you're used to hearing is, you know, like not musicians, but people that are consumers of music. They're used to hearing things that are metronomically precise. And even studio musicians in the 80s and 70s and that were the heyday of studio musicians, where they, especially when they started playing to a click track, they used to know how to play around with the click, you know, so that they could push a little bit and pull a little bit, right? So if you think of every beat as a bullseye, right on the beat is right in the center of the bullseye. A little bit, if something's a little bit to the right, it might be a little bit behind the beat. Yeah, even with heavy metal music, it's very gridded. And what also happens, Adrian, is that the players actually get good enough to sound like they're gridded a lot of times. You can hear younger singers sound like they naturally can do auto-tune effects, you know, yeah, or play to a click live. I've played to click live. On Broadway, you do it all the time. The ABBA show that ran, is that Dancing Queen? That whole show was on click. At Lion King, we had there were like 3 or 4 songs on click. Even in the 1980s at Little Shop of Horrors, there were 2 numbers I had to put on headphones, and I played to the click, and everybody played along with me when I was playing the piano book, because we had taped vocals going on at the same time. And so the taped vocals were on 2 tracks. One track was the piano and a click track of Alan Menken playing the piano and a click track, and then the other track were all like a choir of voices for this one spot. And so I used to have to play a lot live to a click. Even in the 1980s, we were doing that. So it is a skill that you need to have to be able to play with a click if you're going to do any kind of commercial music. But back in the day, great musicians used to know how to play with the click, not play on the click, but play with the click, where they were with the click, but sometimes they were a little ahead of it in the chorus, maybe pushing a little bit, and then they back off, but they were in control of what they were doing. And the click was just a reference point, you know. But then there becomes all of these debates like, oh, you're not with the click, you know. And I've done that, where people don't agree where the click is. You know, there were plenty of times when I don't want to say which show specifically, but one of the shows I played in, the bass player and I had the exact same, very similar time conception, and the regular drummer didn't. And it was so difficult to be playing with the click and getting a groove with the click, and then what the drummer was doing was antithetical to what the rest of the rhythm section was doing. So, but you had to play with the drummer, but then you weren't really with the click in a way that was musical. So having a click has its benefits and its detractions. You have to be a really good musician to make music while you're playing with a click, and that was the beauty of people in the 1980s and 70s who, you know, especially the mid 70s when they started having clicks be ubiquitous. You know, one of the things is that Steely Dan, what they started doing, I forget around when they would do this, but what they would do is they would have a band come in, and if they were playing to a click or not playing to a click, they'd have a rhythm section come in and do a take of a song. And then the next day they'd have a different rhythm section come in and do a different take of the same song. And they'd go on like this until they got a drum track that they liked. And then they'd wipe everything else off of the performance. And then they wouldn't use the click track. They would use the drummer's performance, and everybody would play along with the drums. So that brings me to another point about performing stuff inside of Pro Tools if you're playing a live instrument. To just have to play everything to a click track doesn't give you really a feel. So for example, on this, right? Let me go right here. That's the click track, right? How do you create like a feel? You can create a feel from that. You know, you can play along with that. You know, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? That's one thing. But if I were to hear this instead, right? There's so much more there that you can play along with. So sometimes it's nice to have like a drum track as your reference, because you have much more that you can grab onto and to create your part with. You know, so that's one reason why I like to use the drums as the basis for fixing the timing of everything, unless you got a bad drummer. But this is a pretty good drum performance. Yeah, it's Ash Sohn. He's a very famous English drummer. All right, let's continue on with this. We're moving right along. And let's do our brass. And this is so we got ticks and we've got polyphonic. So let's solo our brass and listen to this pathetic section. That's fine. Whoops, what was that? Right, so that note, first note there is wrong. Right, so that's a C sharp there, that first note there. So we need to change that. So let's see what we can do here. So we'll do tab to transient. We're at the beginning, and we'll just do the letter B, which will separate that out. Now this is tricky because there's a sort of a little bit of a slide to the note, right? So let's just do this. Let's try to get it here, and let's see what this sounds like if we now transpose this down a half step. It didn't do it. Why not? Oh, there we go. That's fine. The alternative would be to copy and paste this onto that. Okay, so that's really weird. So this is going to take a lot of work to fix. So I'm going to separate each one of these little bits out. So tab to transient, and then the letter B. Tab to transient, so it goes to the next note, the letter B. Tab to transient, the letter B. Tab to transient, and the letter B. Whoops, and the letter B. And then just let's make that a separate area. So now I've got these guys up. Let me make this bigger so you guys can see all this a little easier. And let me double check. Okay, so I got a little too early here, so let's fix that. So we just use our regular trimmer tool and just go back a little bit like that. That one's fine, and this one's a little late. So now we've got all those individual tracks. So I'm going to do a combination of manually moving everything. So these two guys are early, so let's put them closer to being on the beat. And then let's see if what we can do about fixing that click at the beginning of those. I'm not sure we can, so let's get rid of that. And let's use our TCE, and let's see if we let's see if we can make these notes more legato. I'm not sure if this is going to work. We might just have to delete this or put something else there. That's better, those first two notes. Right, so this here is a little weird. Okay. So let's fix this up. Get a little bit closer here. And let's see if we can crossfade. And crossfade here a little bit also. See this one. So this one here doesn't sound good, right? So you need to find a D somewhere. All right, let's grab that D. All right. That's better. It's still not great, right? And then let's get this over here. Not great, but let's add our reverb. And you see, I'll show you how to do this in a second. But now notice I've added reverb. It cleans it up, especially with the whole track playing, right? Okay, so you have to be able to visualize that. Let's mute the reverb though for now, and I'll show you how to do that as soon as we get through everything here. Wow, that one's really bad. You know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna delete that one. Okay, so it's B natural to B flat, right? So this needs to be a C. So, okay, that might be a pain in the neck, right? So why don't we just take that one and put it right there. Put it where you want it by the Crusaders. So this guy right here is out of time. So let's see if we could quantize that, just that note. And then this last note here, right? What if we did this? We separated this out and we dragged this over and just replaced this right there. And I think that that's pretty good. So let's now fit everything in here, unmute everything, and let's play it from the top. Brass is too loud, so I'm going to bring the volume down. So are the guitars. Let's see what happens over here. If I, let's see if I just separate this out, right? So that's now separated. And let's just see if I quantize that, if I can make that. That's better. All right, so that's one way to fix a performance. It's tedious, it's time consuming, but it took me about, I guess about an hour along with explaining everything. If I would just put my nose to the grindstone and do this, I could have had this done in about 20 minutes without talking about it. But I've been doing this for years, you know, so I think that if you can spend a couple of hours this week on this, you should be able to get it in good condition. So I'd like the graduate students to try to finish this piece. And undergraduate students, I would like you to get the bass and the guitar, these two guitar tracks, the bass and these two guitar tracks in time. So guitar 2 and guitar 3 and the bass. And don't worry about the brass, just mute that for now. So graduate students are going to do everything, and undergraduate students just these, the bass and the guitar 2 and guitar 3. Remember, when you're doing this, you have to go to analysis and clean up all those extra markers. It'll help out. So you're going to do a combination of manually moving notes out by separating them, transposing wrong pitches, copying and pasting when you can't fix things, some quantizing little areas. So when you quantize, you have to realize that, for example, right here, if I select this and go to quantize it, it's not gonna quantize it. Right? The quantizing is not going to work. What you have to do is highlight this area and then either do B or Command E to make that a separate clip. And then that clip can be quantized. That's one thing that people always get confused. So let me show you now a couple of other things that will be, and also the other bit is next week I'm going to be assigning the final project, which will be due, I think there's 4 more classes after today, but there's 5 weeks worth of time because we have the spring break. So when on the final, I'll have something printed up, a PDF with very specific instructions, and you'll work on it for 3 weeks. You'll hand it in, and then you'll get feedback, and then you'll hand it in a week later with finished. It's a lot of fun. I hope you'll have a lot of fun with it. I've gotten some unbelievable, which I'll play for you. Hopefully it'll inspire you. Work done by previous classes. Okay. Now I've got reverb on here. How do I get that? Well, what I've done is I've gone to the bottom of my session, and you'll notice here I've got a track that says reverb. What this is this is a stereo, what's called an aux track. So I'll highlight the track before where I want the new track to go. And I will do Command, Shift, and N like Nancy. And what I would do is make a stereo aux input, right? And I'm going to name this Reverb 2 because I already have a reverb track. Now, what I tend to do is for all of my time-based tracks like this, these aux sends, I tend to make them no color. So I open up the color palette and just hit none. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at the S for solo, and you see right here, this is grayed out. That's called solo safe. And what that does is it enables, let's take the brass. If I were to solo the brass here, you're still hearing the reverb. If I command click on that, you see it's no longer grayed out. You're not hearing it. So if you solo safe that, that means you'll always hear the effect no matter what track is soloed, if that track has the effect on it. Okay, so I'm going to mute this for now. I'm actually going to delete this track. Okay, so I've got my reverb track, and I'm going to solo safe it by holding down the Command key and clicking on the letter S. So I hold the Command key down, just like this, right? And then I would click on the letter S, and then it gets grayed out. And then we have 3 other steps to do before we can get reverb into this track. The first thing is in the insert column, we need to put a reverb. And the reverb that we're going to be using for this class is something called Deverb. And I would give this like a C grade. 20 years ago when they came out with it, it was pretty good. So you could just go to reverb and it's Deverb. But it's only been upgraded once, and I think that the upgrade was a cosmetic upgrade. I'm not sure they upgraded the algorithms. So, for example, some of the halls don't sound great. What sounds really good is the plate, so I tend to use the plate on this when I'm teaching. And I'm going to go over all of these a little bit. This is more, I'm going to show you the basics of this stuff. This is more in the purview of Audio MIDI 2 that I teach much more about this stuff, about mixing and about really dialing in reverbs and delays. But I do go through the basics right now. So if we look at this plugin, we could see it's separated out into a bunch of different areas, right? These up here are different algorithms that are supposed to simulate just what they say. So the ones that we hall is just like a big hall, like Lafrac Hall. Church is like a big church. Plate is plate reverb. The very first device that created reverb was a spring. Like a lot of guitar amps have spring reverb in them. And that has a particular sound. Another one was called a plate reverb. And what a plate reverb is, a large, thin sheet of metal, rectangle, and it's suspended inside of a wooden frame. And there are 2 transducers, 2 microphones, 2 transducers hooked up to it on either side of the plate. One serves the function of a speaker where you would send signal into that transducer and it would start to excite and vibrate the plate. And then the other transducer would be a contact mic. It would pick up those vibrations of that plate and turn it into electrical energy, which then becomes, audio. And that had sort of a reverbish kind of sound. So it's a synthetic reverb. It's not natural. And actually, I think the first people to use spring reverbs were Hammond organs, I believe, before guitars did. So anyway, that's what a plate is. And I'll get more specific about this stuff. And then we've got rooms, just like a room you're in. And then ambient is just sort of like ambience. And we're going to really avoid ambient and nonlinear. They're just we'll stick with these because they're things that we can visualize. And then there are different preset sizes here. So if you click here, this is the decay time. So with a large hall, it's 4.5 seconds. Medium, it's 3.4. And then with a small hall, it's 2.2. Now, if I go to plate, you see that the large plate is 1.6, medium is 1.2, and small is 817 milliseconds. And then a church, the large church is 8.7, 6.5, and 4.4. So the hall is like a medium-sized hall. And then rooms, a large room is 4.5, a medium room is 751 milliseconds, and a small room is 500. And then room 2 is the same, 1 second. Yeah, it's the same decay, it just has a different flavor to it. So let's take a listen to what these things sound like. So let's first figure out how we're going to get it to, and we're not going to worry about pre-delay, high frequency cut, low pass filter, and diffusion for the time being. Just the algorithm and the size. And you can also customize the size. So let's add plate, and large plate is 2.5 seconds. So what if I wanted to make that bigger? I could just click and drag that like that. But what we need to do is get audio to go through here. And the way that we do that is we use something called a bus. So let me go here first. I got to set up my I/O. Okay, I'll show you how to do this in the future. And if we look here, if you guys have not had your I/O column visualized visible because we've been doing MIDI, click here and then just make sure that I/O is visible because we need that going forward for the rest of the semester. So if we look here, let's get this so that, get this so that you can see this when I zoom in. Okay, so the I/O, right? It says right here, I/O. It's like a fraction, I over O. What I take that to mean is that of these two slots, the top one is I for input, and then the bottom one is O for output. So we need to set up our input, and the input, we're going to use something called a bus. And we're going to pick the first available one. And you'll know it's available because it's white. It's not amber. So if you're using a bus somewhere else, it will be amber, and then you'll pick the first white one. So I've selected that one. It's not amber yet because we haven't set anything through it yet. And then what we're going to do is we're going to name that. So we're going to right click on that and we're going to rename that, and we're just going to rename that reverb. Now, why do they call it bus? Anybody venture a guess? Did I go over this with you? I'm not sure I did. It's because there's some stuff that overlaps with Recording Studio Fundamentals. Okay. There's something called a bus bar. It's a metal bar that transfers energy. A bus bar is typically housed inside blah, 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 all sorts of things for local high current power distribution, right? So they distribute power. In audio, they distribute audio, and this is what they look like, right? These things here. Now, if we look at... if we take a look at these lovely ladies here. Okay, so this is how I think these were still in use in rural areas when I was alive. This is a telephone operator. And when you would call with a manual landline, she would take a cable from this is a patch bay. I have a patch bay in my studio. I've got 2 patch bays in my studio. They're really great to have. right? And your phone is on one of these, switch one of these, and she would take a cable and plug it into the number that you were dialing, and that would create the connection, right? That's manual. That got replaced, and there are bus bars in here to help distribute the audio or the signal. So you're taking a signal and you're routing it to for output of an audio signal or a telephone voice, and you're routing it to the input of another person's phone. So you're taking the output and you're routing it somewhere else. So what we have inside of Pro Tools and all DAWs are these buses. That's what they sort of became known as in the audio world. So when you bus something somewhere, you're sending audio to another destination. So let me undo these. So the next thing we need to do is we need to add this other column here called sends, S-E-N-D-S. And that's right here. So you'll add sends A and A-E. And there are 5 slots here. So you could, there are actually 10 slots because there's, sends F through J. But what you'll do is you will, let's go to, let's use the Wurlitzer electric piano. So I'm going to solo this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right here. We're going to click and we're going to select bus. And notice it's named reverb. Very easy. We'll just select the stereo one and then a fader is going to come up. And this fader will be used to send a copy of the audio from this track into the reverb track. Okay? So let me get rid of that. So watch what happens. I'm going to play the electric piano track. Let me solo. Oh, let's. Now we'll look at the reverb track and there's no input. Watch what happens as I bring the fader up. And we've got our reverb right down there. And if I mute this, now that's obviously way too much reverb and that's the wrong sound of reverb. So let's take a listen to the different reverbs, okay? So we will Hall. So I'm going to play it and stop it and then you can hear the tail. It's dense. I'm going to turn it up more. And you can hear that the pitch changes towards the end. And I hate that about deverb. As it's fading out. It really sounds synthetic. So now let's do a medium Hall. You can really hear, wow, it dropping off on that medium Hall. Small. Church. That sounds better than the Hall. Now, there's something unusual happening here because you're hearing the dry signal first and then you're hearing the reverb. You're going ba-da-da, right? So you're in a football stadium and there's a big sound. You hear the direct signal of the sound and then you hear the reflection like you're in a canyon. It takes time to get to the reflective surface. And that's called pre-delay. That's right here. And that's 40 milliseconds, so you can definitely hear that. Let me turn that all the way off. And that comes in. So if I bring this up, I'll exaggerate it. Almost sounds like an echo, right? So let's just leave it here. And let's do a medium to medium. Small. Plate. Hear how bright that is? Medium. Small. So let's do the medium plate. Listen to how bright the reverb is. Versus the church. And then a room. Let's do a small room. Now, it's too much, so I'm going to bring this down and it'll sound better. So no reverb. See, I can bypass it here. You could see here, just that little room adds a lot of life to the sound. Correct, Dylan. Lawrence Hammond invented the spring reverb. Correct. And Don Leslie created the Leslie. So the plate, when you bring it down, I like the way that sounds. So, how do you decide? Now, there's so much stuff that can be done with routing audio like that we're going to be going over, and we're going to be working on more techniques. We're going to be starting to work a little bit on mixing. We're going to start to work. We're going to do a little bit more work with elastic audio, but doing the final project is going to require a lot of elastic audio work. So get used to playing around with it. Yeah, it'll do MIDI work, drum programming, and adding some of your own music and some elastic audio with some nice audio files I have for you to play around with. Anyway, this is all really I had planned for today. Is there anything that we need to go over again? I mean,
No.
Yes, Christy.
I was just saying no. I'll just review the video, like in anything that I missed.
Okay. Yeah, so that's all I really have prepared today. I got through it a little bit faster than I thought I would. We're going to go over sends. We're going to go over more of the basic parameters of reverb. I'm going to show you what, a little bit more using different plugins that I have that you don't have, where you can hear the difference in the sound a little bit better. And we're going to work on using delay, because delay is a really important effect. It can really do a lot of wonder to your music. I use delay in my film scores to add rhythms that I'm not playing. For example, time delays, and if you think of U2, The Edge, he's playing two notes on the guitar and it sounds like a symphony. Because he's using those timed delays from that Korg rack mount unit he has. So that's on the synthesizer stuff I was playing on the Matriarch. It has a great delay built in, an analog delay, bucket brigade. And you can create all sorts of amazing cross rhythms by having something like as a dotted eighth note playing against straight eighth notes and adding more feedback and everything. All right, everyone. So the assignment for graduate students is to get through this piece, kind of like what I did today. Do the best you can. And for undergraduate students, you're going to work on fixing up guitar 2, guitar 3, and the bass. Just do the best you can with this, all right? And if you want to hand in what you did this week as far as audio editing, I'll take a look at it and give you feedback. Oh, that's another thing. So for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be busy. So I'll get this video up tomorrow or Saturday. But as far as getting feedback, I'm going to have to fit that time in. I'm at crunch time for a film I'm scoring. And it's got to be done by the 18th. So I've got a lot of work to do between now and then. For mixing, the score's all written. I have to rewrite one cue, but there's some editing I have to do, and there's mix prep, and there's mixing. It's that crunch time. So I will get you feedback videos when I can get them in. But hand in all your work. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Professor. Good night.
Professor? Yes.